Anything. Oh no.
We're just on 1260, and that now means that we are out of time. Let's check our scores. We got ballot.
Good evening, everyone. It is just a little bit past 6:15. We do not have a quorum yet. So I'm going to sit on it for another 5 minutes or so, and we'll see who shows up.
Yeah, hello?
Hello.
It's Charles East. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Mr. East. Thanks for coming.
All right. How do I mute it? *6?
I think so. *6, yeah.
All right. So should I mute now?
Sure. We're going to get to it in a little bit. We got to wait for more people to come in and have a quorum, and then we'll call the meeting to order.
All right. Okay. Okay. So how are you?
I'm well.
Julia Boyd is here.
Thank you, Miss Boyd. I'll call the roll in a few minutes. I can see the faces pop in, so I'll give it a few.
Hi, Mr. Witherwax. This is Carmela from DDC. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Carmela. Thank you for coming.
Wonderful. Just testing. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Look forward to your presentation. You're first on the agenda.
Well, thank you very much.
Hello, Mr. Witherwax.
Hello, Ms. Tyus, how are you?
I am well. I hope you're well as well.
I am well, yeah. I'd be weller if my news feed were filled with fewer shootings, but that's not the purview of this committee, though it is occupying a lot of space in my brain and heart lately.
I completely understand.
Well, since we are at, hold on, one or two members shy of a quorum, but I don't want to let that stand in the way of the presentation since we have the good folks from DDC tonight with us. I will roll just to see if I'm missing anybody in the sea of very few faces, mostly just names. And of course, as people come in, we will add them. Just by way of introduction, my name is Robert Witherwax. I am the chair of the Environment, Sanitation, and Transportation Committee of Brooklyn's Community Board 8. This is our May meeting. We are going to have one more meeting in the board year. We're going to have a meeting on the 4th Tuesday of June. We'll come to that in the end when we talk about new business, but that does give us a little breathing room in our agenda because we had anticipated that this might be our final meeting for the year. But as events have transpired, we will be having one on the 28th of June. I would introduce my co-chair, my vice chair, Mr. Mark Thurton, but I don't think he's joined us yet. So I will do that when the time is right. But in the meantime, let me call the roll. If you're here, please unmute. Say here, present, yes, hey, whatever you want to say. And if I hear you, I will say thank you and move on to the next name. If I don't hear you, I won't say anything. Mr. Atkins. Julia Boyd.
Here.
Thank you. Janet Collins. Alan Gerber. Aaron Gray.
Yeah.
Thank you. Saskia Hagens.
Present.
Thank you. Eugenie Harris Blenman.
Present.
Thank you. Jennifer Jordan. Zerzima Jordan. Regina Kinsey. Peter Crashus.
Here.
Thank you. Francis Langley. William Meehan.
Here.
Thank you. Fior Ortiz Joyner.
Here.
Thank you. Celeste Stern.
Here.
Thank you. Carrie Tam. Mark Thurton. Ethel Tyus.
Present.
Thank you. Irsa Weatherspoon. Robert Witherwax present. Deborah Young. All right. We have 10 members present. We need 13 to make a quorum. So this could be a really short meeting since most of our items tonight involve voting. So before I do hand it off to DDC, our friends from the North Flatbush BID Business Improvement District and Mr. James Ellis is here, and he wanted to give us a brief overview of a new project on his horizon. Mr. Ellis.
Hey, thanks, Mr. Witherwax. Is my volume coming in? I apologize that I'm having to take this call from the streets, but duties prevail and I have to be on the move. So I thank you for this time, but I will also just make the quick correction. I'm here representing one of my clients called Dollar Ride, which is a technological platform for the dollar van industry. And kind of the intentions of our conversation today was just to remind the community board after the big board presentation that we're sharing some information and requesting feedback about a proposal that Dollar Ride is putting together. And Dollar Ride is a Black-owned technology company. Its mission is to deliver community-aligned clean transportation solutions focused in neighborhoods that are currently underserved by public transit. As part of this, Dollar Ride is in a tranche and slated to potentially raise additional funding from the New York State Clean Neighborhood Challenge, which is operated through NYSERDA. And if awarded, this funding would enable Dollar Ride to potentially look at electrifying dollar vans in parts of the outer boroughs that lack this public transit connections, specifically around the routes of Utica Avenue and Flatbush Avenue. But we're here today, and I'm here today asking my neighbors and friends at Community Board 8 to help shape this outcome of this project by sharing some of your feedback. And if you know anything about dollar vans or any experiences with dollar vans, we have a community survey that we'd love for you to participate in, as well as we have a live in-person town hall that we're looking to promote participation at, and maybe even your attendance. I can share those links, or maybe Mr. Witherwax, if it's easier for you to share. We've had some links that we're asking people to participate in, either through the survey or through the live town hall event that we're doing. Oh, thank you so much. So these are the town halls that we have on the schedule. One is this coming Thursday from 6:30 to 8:30, which will be at Brooklyn Commons, which is just there at Flatbush Avenue and Empire. And then we also just calendared another one for June 1st on a virtual platform to invite neighbors to join. And you can RSVP at those links that are in the screen. I think Community Board 8 has also been generous in sharing this invite around through their e-blast, and certainly would appreciate any participation from our neighbors on this. And then the survey is also available, and there's a link there that you guys can just offer your feedback and your experiences in using dollar vans, and what potentially an electrified dollar van vehicle or industry would look like, and how it can shape transportation for our neighborhood. So in short, that's my ask. Take a survey, maybe attend one of our virtual or in-person meetings, offer your feedback on what could potentially be another great resource for the community that relies on those alternate public transportation services. So Mr. Weatherwax, thank you so much for this time at the top of your meeting. I appreciate it. And I hope we'll see some of your faces and hear some of your feedback on through these survey opportunities.
Great, thank you. I will try, though it's probably beyond my skill set, to post those in the chat, but I'll certainly include the dates and the links in the minute. So thank you, Mr. Ellis.
Well, I thank you, and great to see everyone, and I hope you have a great evening and a fruitful meeting. So thank you so much for the time.
Great. Now I'd like to hand it off to Carmela from DDC, who's got our main presentation for the evening. You're on mute, Carmela.
And thank you very much, Mr. Witherwax, and also thank you, Ms. George, for giving us this space to present. I also want to thank my colleagues from DDC, from design, as well as from construction. So thank you also for being here. And I'll go ahead and share my screen. Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, hold on. Okay, so this is a presentation on the Pacific Park Project Phase 2, Project SEK 002383, on Dean Street between 6th Avenue and Vanderbilt Avenue and some other avenues which we'll get to. And it's the combined sewer installation and water main replacement project. So this is just the agenda. So the project, we have not issued a notice to proceed yet to a contractor because we haven't engaged in a contractor just yet. We're still moving into that process. The project is to start this fall 2022, and once we have more details, we will share those details with the community. And it's expected to take 36 months. And again, once we have the contractor name, we will share that. And the total cost of the project is $15 million. So DEP prioritized this project to provide residents living in the newly constructed buildings with sufficient capacity for sanitary discharge and to convey stormwater from the project area. Also to upgrade the water main sizes to provide for additional peak demands and also to improve fire safety protection. So the combined sewer replacement is in Dean Street between 6th and Vanderbilt Avenues, and Vanderbilt Avenue between Dean and Pacific Streets. The distribution water main is between Carlton and Vanderbilt Avenues, Vanderbilt between Dean and Atlantic Avenues, and Carlton between Dean and Pacific Streets. So there are 2 water mains on Vanderbilt Avenue between Dean and Pacific Street. One is in the street and one is in the eastern sidewalk, which means that there will be some digging up of the sidewalk. However, the lamppost will be protected since it's within a historic district. The sidewalk replacement will be cement according to the landmark preservation requirements, and the curb will also be granite. And this is just a map, but you know your area. And this is just an overview of how generally the work would proceed. There's a preliminary work of having the utilities go in and move their lines. There's outreach, there's the permits, there's the location of the materials, the street prunings and guarding the trees, test pits, and street furniture removal, and that happens up front. And then in the ground, as you can see, there's a cutting and a trench setup and water main installation, a sewer support system, catch basin replacement. So that all happens in the ground. And then above ground, you have the street overlay and the trench restoration, the upgraded pedestrian ramps, and the fire hydrant replacement. And this is typically what the street looks like underground. So as you can see, the utilities have to be moved and the water main has to be excavated, and that's all sort of the spaghettis underground. So during construction, as per New York City DOT, construction will take place Monday to Friday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. and Saturdays, if necessary, from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. The contractor will follow all DOT and SAPO events and embargoes. Traffic patterns during construction, the contractor will be responsible for personnel, signage, and for maintaining a safe work site for pedestrians and vehicles. Pedestrians will have access to buildings and sidewalks, and bikers will be notified ahead of work in that area. Also, there has to be a minimum width of 5 feet access on sidewalks and crosswalks. The contractor will ensure that travel lanes are maintained. There may be intermittent reduction of travel lanes when necessary. And if necessary, there may be a full roadway closure, but notice will be given upfront. There will be signs, and hopefully it will be intimate when necessary. So the community impacts and mitigations. The contractor will obtain pre-construction reports, and which will be done by a separate entity. They will work within DEP noise code regulations. They will ensure the area has enough water during temporary water shutdowns, so they will coordinate with critical businesses in the area. They will post an advance contractor's 24-hour notice to impacted areas. They will keep the storage site and area clean and safe, and they will cover trucks delivering fill material. Also, they will provide a professional rodent control inspector to monitor and maintain a rodent control station. Driveway access may be temporarily restricted during work hours, but coordination is done on a case-by-case basis. Parking may be temporarily restricted when necessary, and signs will be posted. Garbage pickups may be affected, but will also be coordinated by the field office. And individuals with special needs would need to contact the CCL, which we'll talk about later, and the field staff will work to minimize any inconvenience. So OCON is DDC's Office of Community Outreach and Notification, and OCON works with the CBs, the BIDs, the local businesses, and other community stakeholders impacted by construction. The CCL is the Community Construction Liaison, and that person will be the dedicated on-site point person. So once we have that CCL on board, that CCL will reach out to the community board, as I did, and get the names and email addresses of all interested stakeholders to keep them notified either by email. The CCL will also go door to door. So that will be the person that everyone should contact basically if there are any issues that come up during construction. So again, they will be the first point of contact. They will maintain an on-site presence. They will resolve any issues that come up. They will distribute the advisories and the weekly newsletters, and they will provide the 72-hour and 24-hour confirmation or cancellation notices, like I said, by email or door to door, and they will attend the community board district cabinet meetings. And these are just samples of what the community might see in terms of information and what might be distributed. So there's the project information card, there's the advisories. These are just samples, doesn't pertain to this particular project. But, and the newsletter and a weekly look ahead bulletin. So my presentation is very short because we don't have as much information as we would have liked to have at this point, but more information will be forthcoming once the notice to proceed, once the contractor is on board and the notice to proceed is issued and the community construction liaison is on board and the field office is located. So this is going to take some time, but we understood that, you know, some people in the community are, you know, associations really wanted some information and we want to get the information out there as soon as we can. So that is the end of the presentation. Now I do see construction on the line and design on the line. So if you have any questions that they can answer or I can answer, thank you. We're looking forward to it.
Carmela, thank you, Construction and Design, for sticking around. We've got a few questions percolating in the chat, and if for those of us who aren't on this visually, I'll read them aloud. What will drive the need for Saturday work?
Okay, let me see who's on. Marie, do you want to answer that question? Are you still on? I can't see. Hold on. I don't think she's here, but generally what would drive the need would be anything that's found, emergency work maybe in the ground. Construction can answer that a little bit better than I can, but again, it's as needed. So if they find something that they have to work on and it needs to go into a Saturday, they would do that. But the hope is that the construction would be just Monday through Friday. And of course, the CCL would also be able to provide information on that once we have a CCL.
Right. And my experience with CCLs have been they excel at providing information, perhaps inundated you with information. So hopefully we'll get one of those.
Yes.
How long do you anticipate water shutoffs will last?
I'm sorry, we have a interference.
Water shutoffs, about how long would they last? A typical water shutoff?
A typical water shutoff lasts maybe between 8 a.m. and 3 p.m. The community is always advised in advance if there's going to be a water shutoff, and they're also advised when the water is back on because there's a certain way to, you know, for homes to get that water running again. So it would normally last somewhere between 8 and 3, generally speaking, unless it's an emergency. I don't want to be too definitive about anything because, you know, things happen, but
I think everything's different. Can you go
Yeah.
ahead to the map slide just while we
Sure.
take the next couple of questions?
Okay, am I stuck here? Here we go.
Great, thank you. Will buses be rerouted? As you know, Dean Street has the B65 bus. When there's a closure on Dean Street, what are we doing with the bus?
That's a good question, and that's something that we would talk with the contractor about to see how that would play out. They might be rerouted. I don't want to say now because again, that would all depend on the contractor and how he's moving forward. So we can get back
Decision
to
that's
you
up
on
to the
that.
contractor. That's not something that New York City Transit has a plan for.
That I would have to find out. I don't have that information. So if anyone from DDC has that information, that would be great. But I can definitely look at the stipulations. I can look at the stipulations and I can get back to you on that.
Thank you.
I mean, because it may be that they don't have to necessarily, you know, it just depends. So I don't want to say. I will get back to you on that.
Sure. Is there a timetable per block, sort of within the 36-month block? You know your staging, like how you're going to do it?
Yes, there will
Okay.
be a project timeline, and that is something that the CCL will be able to provide. There will be, because they're going to start in a certain place, and they're not going to work on every area at the same time. So they're going to start in a certain place and then move along. But since we don't have a contractor on board yet, I don't have that plan.
Okay. TBD, but there will be a plan that's
Project
published ahead of time.
timeline.
Okay.
Yes, there will be a project timeline with locations or where they plan to begin and how they plan to move. And if they come, if anything happens where they cannot do that, they have to change the way they're going, we will know and we will let the community know.
So and maybe I missed this in the presentation. I apologize, but it takes off of one of the questions in the chat, which observes that there's already pretty regular flooding in some of the existing buildings on Dean Street. You know, Storm Ida, of course, many of us flooded Dean Street or otherwise. Are these pipes sized to accept enough water runoff? So tell me the sizes. What do we have now, and what are we going to?
Okay, I'll
on
give
the-
that question to someone in design. I can't see. Let me see if I can show.
Good evening. This is Dazi Shen. I'm in charge for this project. I'm from TBC. Actually, this combined soup has been as per DEPs. And this combined soup size has been significantly increased to 48 inch. So 48 inch, yeah, it's a very big, the sewer pipe. And I actually DP when they make the plan, they supposed to make the drainage, the analysis.
Came back up.
Yeah. Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. And actually, DVC when we do the design, we look at the existing contribution.
Everywhere.
So replace those the older existing contribution can be replaced. And we think the flooding issue will be improved. Yeah, will be resolved.
I missed it in your commentary. What is the size that we have now? What's the diameter of the pipes that exist now?
The size existing is nearby. Are you here?
Yeah, it's the existing sewer size is approximately 18 inch, as far as I remember. So instead of 18 inch, we are installing 48 inch.
Okay.
Do you hear me?
Yes, 18 inches going to 48 inches.
Yeah, yes.
And that's for both the sewer and the, well, you're talking about the sewer mains, not the water mains, right?
No, I'm talking about the sewer mains, the combined sewer.
Okay. Another question, which goes to a lot of what we've been saying for decades in this neighborhood. Why now? Why not before we built thousands of housing units downstream of these sewer outflows? This work will be completed after roughly another 1,000 units of housing will be added to this block. Why is this work timed after these buildings will be opened? Why didn't we get this in before?
No, that is a question for DEP actually, because we don't time out. We are only the construction manager. We take on projects from DOT, DEP, other city agencies. So, I mean, I can definitely get in touch with DEP with that question to find out why now.
There'll be no good answer, but it's a question that needs to go on the record because
Sure,
as
absolutely.
the observation was made, we had Ida. I live several blocks to the north, i.e. uphill of this. I flooded. I know people who live uphill of me who flooded.
Sure.
There's not enough capacity in the system, and people have been saying that since
For
Atlantic
a long time.
Yards, Pacific Park, whatever you want to call it, was hatched.
Sure. Well, I can definitely ask the question.
Yep.
To
Thank
find
you.
out,
I would
why
appreciate
now.
that.
Yeah, we definitely take projects from DEP. So we go sort of when they come to us, we are the construction manager, but we don't have anything to do with the timing.
Thank you. So I'll trust Mr. Meehan's math, and he says in the chat that the 48-inch pipes are about 7 times as big as the 18-inch pipes. I didn't get much past geometry in high school, so I'll go with that. And the question follows up on the one we just discussed. Should we be concerned begs the answer yes, that all of those 1,000 units will be feeding into an 18-inch pipe until this project happens? And the answer is yes. Of course, we should be concerned. There will be flooding. Any other questions in the chat or people who want to raise their hands and or speak?
Mr. Willis, this is Fiortiz Joyner. My hand was
Ms.
raised.
Joyner, how are you?
Well, how are you?
Good, thanks. Please proceed.
Good. Thanks. I just have a question. I noticed that there's a significant amount of construction on Park Place, and I don't know if this particular agency has anything to do with it or information. I understand that this project is scheduled to start fall of 2022, but if this project and the project that's going on in Park Place are going at the same time, that's a lot of construction for one neighborhood.
Yeah, Carmela, you're familiar with the DDC project on Park and Underhill, right? Yeah.
Yes, I am.
Do you know what the phase out date of that is?
I can find out for you. I can get that information for you. So that's the one on Underhill. Sure. And I can send that to you. I have your email, Mr. Witherwax.
Oh, send it all to the board office.
Send it to the
They've got
board.
everybody
Okay.
else's email, so don't worry.
Okay, so you want to know when that project will be phased out. And I
whether
did
you anticipate any overlap where both
Okay.
projects are going at the same time.
Okay, sure. I can definitely get that information. And yes, there's a lot of construction going on over there because I drove around there before. So, okay, are there any other questions? So the questions that I have is DEP, why did it take so long? And for that other project to find out if there's going to be overlap or what the phase out date will be. And are there, and again, you know, we will have more information as we get closer to construction. I'm happy to come back and present an update if you'd like when we have more information. That's not a problem at all.
Marie in the chat says they will not be active at the same time.
Thank you, Marie.
Rendau.
Yes, she is the borough director for construction for Brooklyn. Thank you, Marie.
Great. That means that either the Park Place one is wrapping up soon or this one isn't starting for a while, but hopefully it's the former.
That's good news right there. Thank you.
Yeah, that is good news. Any final questions before we let our friends from DDC, DEP, and company go? Feel free to unmute and just ask at this point. One last question. Why will the project take 3 years?
I'll leave that to Marie. Thank you, Marie. Maybe you can put something in the chat on that. She's having issues with her audio. She said it's relating. Did you see something in the chat? I saw something pop up.
She says, I can answer the question relating to the bus route.
Yes, please.
As fast as you can type, Marie. No hurry.
Yes, please.
We'll keep it in the chat, and we'll be recording the chat after this.
While Marie's typing her response, can I ask a quick question? If this was already covered, I apologize. I did get on a little bit late.
No problem. Who's this?
This is Elise.
Hi, Elise.
I'm under Jenna's. I'm sorry. We're here together.
That's fine.
I know that with all this construction, there are various parking garages around which a lot of us use. Do you know if there will be at points limited or no access to these garages for long periods of time?
Again, you know, the contractor, I don't know what his plan is. You know, maybe Marie can speak to that, but I don't know if that would happen or how that would happen. I just don't have that information now. Maybe Marie can again speak to that.
So, yeah, I mean, to allude to what you did say in the presentation is that the contractor will manage access to and from garages. There may be closures. We don't know, I'm presuming right now, whether those closures would be hours, days, weeks, or months.
Right, at this point.
So we'll find out later on in the project's development life cycle.
Yes.
Marie does say in the chat, relative to the question about the buses, all buses will be rerouted off of Dean Street during construction. And I guess, because I didn't mention it, but the B69 does go on Vanderbilt too. So I'm guessing that would be rerouted off Vanderbilt as well. Begs the question, and I hate to ask Marie to type so fastly, where are we rerouting those buses to? Are we putting them on St. Mark's? Are we putting them on Atlantic? Are we putting them on Flatbush? Are we putting them on Washington? If there's an answer, please answer it. If not, we'd love to know the answer when it's devised. We have suggestions, I'm sure. Access to businesses will be maintained for emergency and after construction hours. The bus routes will be determined by the MTA, as expected. Following up on the garage question, a major concern for us in the neighborhood is the congestion feeding into the garages, especially during Barclays events. Will there be a comprehensive plan for mitigating that? So to the previous point of Marie's, access to businesses will be maintained for emergency and after construction hours. So at the end of the workday, the street is given back every single day. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
you'll
well, let me not be
always-
so quick to say that. Oh, see, yes. Okay. She said yes.
and that's that's one of the issues, right? That goes to Mr. Meehan's question about could we have more short-term disruption to get the project completed faster, right? I mean, there's an hour at the beginning and an hour at the end of the day spent opening the street back up and closing the street back up so that we can, for the remaining 16 hours of the 24 hours, have a street. And there's an argument to be made that that's very inefficient and that spreading it out over longer is less preferable to condensing it and doing it much faster.
Wait, you mean having longer hours during the day, or what do you mean?
Yeah, having longer hours during the day and or not covering up the street and restoring it on a daily basis, right? I mean, it's a trade-off for communities. Do you want the construction to have a minimal impact during a given 24-hour cycle, but stretch for 3 years? Or do you want to have a month of hell?
Interesting.
That's something that should be considered from those of you, from my perspective, from those of you who'd make these decisions. As Mr. Meehan said, he'd take the month of hell.
Okay, duly noted.
Just to read off Marie's comments, in situations where access will be impeded after working hours, we will coordinate well in advance, approximately 2 weeks, with the business.
He's going again. Let me finish eating, but give him a little of that thing for the stomach. Wow.
So again, you've got your plan, you've got your way of doing business. We're not here to rethink the wheel, but these are things that I hope is going on in the brain of the EDC about different ways to
Mr. Witherwax, I
approach
definitely want the community's input in terms of ideas and everything like that. I mean, it's not that we could do everything that's suggested, but I would still like to know, because that's important. It's important that we mitigate the impacts to the community. It's important that we respect the community. It's important that we get in and out. So any ideas, suggestions, please let me know.
Yeah, and to the point in the chat, yes, it is. I was being hyperbolic by saying a month of hell. Again, it would be more like a year of hell, but again, as opposed to 3 years of minor inconvenience. And I live on Park Place off of Underhill, so I'm at the tail end of the 2.5 years that we've had of digging up the water mains along Park. So, I've experienced the, minor inconveniences that have gone on with that. But so I'm speaking from that point of view. It would have been nice if it was over faster. I think it would be nice for everybody. And I understand there's labor rules and safety rules and all sorts of other things that would never occur to those of us who just walk by these holes in the street that complicate these things. But again, you're hearing some voices in the community saying that if we had our druthers, we take shorter and harder than longer and less invasive.
Mr. Witherwax, this is Peter Cratchis.
Mr. Crashes, yes, sir.
Yeah. Actually, I would just to build on that a little bit. I would actually respond to it. I would say the most important thing that we really, I think, from a community side, because this is some of the questions have referred to the fact that this is a pretty complicated area with a lot of different kinds of uses for the street and sidewalk, more than in a regular brownstone block. So it would be really helpful if as soon as DDC is able to break down the way that this is going to be done in terms of the construction time frame and the blocks. That's really the first way. That without that information, it's hard for the community to give too much feedback to them about what they should be doing. Because as we're talking about parking garages and Barclays Center events and the bus route and all of these things are coming down Dean Street
and Vanderbilt, and then they also use Carleton. So I think it's really important to get clarity about what the proposal actually is.
The timeline, the project timeline and locations.
Right, the project timeline and locations per block, really. Yeah. And even within the block, because there are parking garages that it's going to be a 700 unit parking garage opening up before your project is completed, and that's going to be used certainly by Parkway Center events. And so there's a lot of vehicles that are going to be passing through this area, and it really would be helpful to get an idea of what your plans are and what you in a realistic way expect to happen. Because we've already seen, and I should just say that I think we had heard originally this was going to start at the end of the summer, and now it sounds like it's going to start in the fall. So, we probably also really like to have some clarity about, make sure that we know when this project is going to start so that the community can be informed accurately.
Yes, I will definitely let the community know. I've been, reaching out, trying to give as much information. We wanted to, like I said earlier, we wanted to give this presentation as we got closer, actually, once we had a contractor on board and we had additional information. But there were some requests to have the presentation now, which is fine. So again, I'm happy to come back when we have more information.
That's great. No, and it's absolutely, to your point, Mr. Crashlis's point, it's a feedback loop. You tell us where you are, and we tell you where we'd like you to go, and vice versa. And by the time we get those things, you've heard some of our feedback. And to Marie's point in the chat, there is also going to be a monthly task force meeting to update the community on the status of the project and to address any ongoing concerns. So, again, even the sooner we can get that up and running as a structure and an expectation, I think the best for the community.
Sure. I'll reach out. And again, Maria's the borough director for Brooklyn Construction. So she's fully in charge of what's going to happen with the contractors and everything and the field office. I mean, she's the one who, she's the head of it all. So in Brooklyn. So we're happy she's here. And I'm so happy that design is here as well. Thank you, design. Are there any additional questions?
No, I think that's the sum of it at this point. Any other final questions? Great. Thank you very much for your time. As you said, this may have been the first in this project. It won't be the last.
Right.
We look forward to inviting you back.
Thank you. Thank you so much,
or
everyone.
attending those monthly meetings in some capacity.
I look forward to it. All right. Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Carmela.
Bye.
Thank you to everyone who asked good questions. I am going to call the roll one more time. And if we don't hit the magic number, we're going to just move into new business and perhaps discussion of the agenda items, but we cannot vote. Desmond Atkins. Julia Boyd.
Yeah.
Thank you. Janet Collins.
Oh, Janet
Helen
Collins.
Gerber. Aaron Gray.
Here.
Thank you. Saskia Hagens.
Present.
Thank you. Jeannie Harris Blenman. Jennifer Jordan. Zima Jordan.
I'm here, Mr. Whitawacker.
Thank you.
Sorry.
That's Ms. Harris Blenman. Thank you.
Yes.
Peter Crashis. Here. Francis Langley. William Meehan is here. Theodore Ortiz Joyner.
Yeah, sorry, I had a problem unmuting myself.
Here.
Oh, you're here. Ms. Joyner's here. Thank you. Celeste Stern. Thank you. Amy, Carrie Tan. Thurton.
Hi, I'm here. Sorry.
Thank you, Carrie. Mark Thurton.
I'm trying to find my mute.
Mark's here.
Thank you, Mark. And everyone, here's Mark Thurton, the vice chair of the committee. Ethel Tyus is here. Yrsa Weatherspoon. Robert Witherwax is here. Deborah Young. No, we are still shy of a quorum. All right. So June meeting will be slightly busier. We'll have a lot of voting in June. June, while I'm on the topic, again, this will be the 28th of June, the last Tuesday in June, the 28th of June, same WebEx channel. We are going to be hearing a presentation from DOT on open streets, specifically on the open streets. They spoke to us last fall. They said they'd come back in the spring. It's going to be June. That's okay, but they're going to talk about the changes they're going to make to specifically the Underhill Avenue open streets and the Vanderbilt Avenue open streets restaurants in terms of both the physical appearance. Underhill right now is just a couple of barricades that get moved back and forth at every intersection, but they're going to have different interfaces for the various modes of transit. And also with Vanderbilt Avenue open streets, they're going to have some new rollouts with that. And I've also requested that they speak on any other open streets in the district, so that we don't always hit those two, very successful, but those two same avenues. I want to know what resources are being devoted to the other open streets that we have or have had in Community Board 8. So that's on the agenda for June. One of the things I had hoped to do tonight was discuss the community and committee feedback on the Buffalo Avenue presentation that we received in the April meeting. I circulated among the membership sort of the 6 takeaways, 6 either gleaned from the chat or emailed to us or me separately after the fact, concerning some of the important elements of the project. We did the same thing for the city bike phase rollout. We had about 7 different comments on that. So the idea was to read these into the record and to endorse them or modify them and vote on them. We obviously can't vote without a quorum, but I just wanted to read them into the record anyway and have a 5 minutes of discussion. It's 7 o'clock. We can spare some time on that. So Buffalo Avenue, for those of you who remember, we had a presentation last month on the intersection of Eastern Parkway and Buffalo Avenue, specifically the northbound travel going into Eastern Parkway from East New York Avenue, and some changes that were made to the southbound at East New York Avenue as well. There was a bike lane included in the presentation, some timing changes to the lights and some configuration changes at the intersection at the north end. Several people suggested speed bumps at certain points on Buffalo Avenue would be worth considering. One member suggested that the plan to add a protective bike lane on Buffalo Avenue and delay the completion of the pedestrian safety project on Eastern Parkway, Rochester, and Buffalo Avenue for 2 to 3 years is totally unacceptable. No argument there. I'm requesting that DOT do their job fairly and focus on the 2017 Eastern Parkway Vision Zero plan to make the intersection of Eastern Parkway, Buffalo, and Rochester safe for pedestrians, and demanding that DOT start to work ASAP on the pedestrian safety at the intersections of Eastern Parkway, Rochester, and Buffalo with completion by the fall of this year. DOT needs to comply with the community's request for a new pedestrian crosswalk east and west on Buffalo between Lincoln Terrace Park Tennis Courts and Lincoln Terrace Park. And the plan for a possible protected bike lane on Buffalo Avenue could be reviewed at a later time. Let's see, sorry, lost my place. On Buffalo Avenue, DOT needs to bite the bullet and eliminate enough parking spots to fully protect the northbound bike lane approaching Eastern Parkway and eliminate the slip lane at East New York Avenue. They should also add stop or yield signs to the crosswalk between the park and the tennis courts. Just occurred to me that I might actually have the presentation that I can share. At least we can have a look at the maps. Can everyone see this?
See it.
Existing conditions. I'm going to go to the proposed conditions. So there were several elements to it. Move northbound through movement to the rightmost lane. So if you're going north on Buffalo through Eastern Parkway or hanging a right onto Eastern Parkway, the right lane only, which makes the next two lanes left turn only. And the signal phase will be when those two lines are green, pedestrians will not be permitted to cross Eastern Parkway. So separating that out, which is excellent. The service roads, all of those yellow bars will get crosswalk signals and crosswalks that don't exist. This is now turned sideways. So that's Buffalo Avenue between the two parts of Lincoln Terrace Park. Upgrade the conventional bike lane on from Eastern Parkway to East New York to a parking protected bike lane. So we can swap. If you look at the bottom of the picture, you've got the people walking, you've got the tree, then you've got the cyclist, and then you've got the zebra stripes, and then the parked car. That's a swap from where it is now. And then here at the bottom, where the cars slip off to go westbound on East New York Avenue, it's more of a turn as opposed to just a straightaway, and it lessens the interaction between the cyclists who are going southeast on Buffalo Avenue and cars going southwest on Buffalo Avenue. So again, we had some great feedback on this. Speed bumps, priorities about what you're going to work on. The big one, the big takeaway was a crosswalk somewhere. I'm going to go back to this one. Somewhere where the natural crosswalk might be mid-block to get from one half of Lincoln Terrace Park to the other half of Lincoln Terrace Park. That would be a great idea. See, people are saying add stop or yield signs at the crosswalk between the park and the tennis courts. Do it right the first time. Somebody suggested placement of overhead signage indicating the flow responsibilities of each lane. So going back to this first slide here, that if you're going to go straight, you need to get to the right. If you're going left, you need to be in the left two lanes. Again, a signalized mid-block pedestrian crossing to join the two halves of the park. And then somebody also suggested, well, if you're going to do that, why not raise the crosswalks? That is something that's in DOT's toolkit. It's been done in many cities around the world. It not only puts the pedestrian automatically, 6 inches higher and more visible, but it is a de facto speed bump too. They're great ideas. We don't have them in New York for whatever reason. I don't know why. I've heard urban legend that there's one somewhere. I've not found it. Does anyone have anything they want to add by way of comment to the Buffalo Avenue feedback? So again, speed bumps, priority of rollout, mid-block crosswalk, protecting the slip lane a little more aggressively, and overhead signage and raised crosswalks.
This is Charles East.
Welcome, Mr. East.
Hi, how you doing? So, how about the sign at the foot where Buffalo starts, where Buffalo Avenue starts at East New York? So people to slow down coming up the hill to go to Eastern Parkway. Have a flashing sign from the pole in the middle of the street. Just slow down because that's where a lot of accidents are occurring. They cannot negotiate the corner when they come from Rockaway Parkway going into Buffalo.
Sure. We can add that to the list.
I think that would help, and because you have daily accidents out there as a result of that. People are speeding.
That's an easy ask. The city can roll out those VMS.
Yeah, they can do that in a day. They can do that in a day.
Yep.
It shouldn't take long.
No. Any other additions to the Buffalo Avenue feedback?
Mr. Whitwax, this is Ethel Tias. I would strongly recommend additional pavement signage directing the cars that are going to make that turn to go east on Eastern Parkway as they go up Buffalo Avenue. Overhead
Not only
signage.
overhead, but on the ground too.
Correct. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm going to stop the share because I can't see the chat. Raised crosswalks. The Adams administration says they are going to roll out 100 raised crosswalks per year. Well, there's 59 districts in New York. We deserve at least 2 of them. So let's go for that, if not more. Any other comments on this? So again, we're not voting tonight. We don't have a quorum, but I will take this feedback as positive. I'll put it into form of a letter. I'll circulate it among the committee, and hopefully in June we can vote on it. Mr. Thurman.
Yeah, I mean, DOT asking us to vote on it?
No, DOT wasn't asking us to vote on the feedback. So if somebody wants to make a motion, again, we can't do business tonight, is what I'm saying. We don't have a quorum, so we can't vote on something. But if the members don't object, we could simply send this off to DOT and say, look, here's what a meeting's worth of reflection has produced, without kind of a wrapper. So we could do that.
Okay.
Ms. Joyner?
Thank you. This may have been discussed at the last meeting, but and if it did, forgive me, but if you could refresh my memory. If a person is crossing on Eastern Parkway from one service road to another, especially a senior citizen, will the time be a bit longer? Because that's a very large street to cross from one service road to another.
I don't recollect that we talked about specific signal phase timing.
Okay.
But I don't know if it was enough time to get at a senior's pace from, say, north of the service road to south of the south service road.
Well,
I don't know. That's a great question for follow-up. If you stand on any given intersection with your smartphone and time it from the point that this light turns green, it goes for the whole signal phase till it turns green again, that's your universe. And then you slice it up to say, okay, how much time does this get green? How long is it yellow? How long is it red? And it's a really exact science that DOT gets into. So their signal phasing is, and it always has downstream implications. If you give more time to one crossing, you've got to take it from somewhere else. So it's a fascinating.
Yeah, I guess DOT can say that that they can stop at the island. It may just take a little longer for the slower demographic to cross Eastern Parkway, I guess.
Yeah, but I'll ask the question what the signal phasing is for the north-south pedestrian crossing. It's something that we should know.
Thank you.
All right, so we can move this on to DOT. I think they'd appreciate the criticism sooner rather than later. And as long as no one in the committee objects to that, the chair will make an executive decision to pass it on. Moving on, let me stop the share for a second and go to the other proposal that we heard.
Mr. Whitterwax.
Who's that?
This is Mark. On that presentation, could you just send that out to the committee? I'm not sure if I saw it. I might have missed it.
Sure, I definitely sent it out this afternoon. I'm not sure if it was just to you in response to your request or to the whole committee. I don't.
It was a reply all. We all got it in the email.
Okay, good. All right, so I'm now going to share the city bike expansion slideshow. Same idea. We had a lot of good feedback and criticism of the proposed locations. First and foremost, what are the CB9 locations, specifically those on or adjacent to Eastern Parkway and Lincoln Terrace Park? I mean, come on, we can't make an informed decision on the quality of the location sightings in our district unless we know where they are going to be just across the street in CB9. So regret that didn't happen. There were some concerns raised at the Public Safety Committee meeting about whether we have an opportunity to review suitable stations for city bikes in Crown Heights. We need more city bike stations directly in front of subway stations. The map shows several stations without any city bike docks, which relates back to the observation that we have none on, there's no proposed docks near the Nostrand Avenue station and no proposed docks that we can see near the Utica Avenue station, which seems a little silly. But maybe they're there on the south side and we just don't know. Very happy to see most of these in the roadbed. Our sidewalks are pretty busy and narrow, so I'm glad you won't be encroaching on that. Counterpoint, not happy that they're in the roadbed because no parking for neighborhood residents. We have a problem already looking for parking when we come home from work. So the eternal argument, citing is very much, again, an art and a science. So that's to be discussed. Will you be implementing CB8 and CB9 at the same time? They were unclear about that, if I recall correctly. The loss of parking spaces results in residents parking further away from their residences. People who work late are subject to travel longer distances to reach their final destination, often late at night, and this presents a safety issue. So again, an argument about street placement versus sidewalk placement. Where the sidewalks are wide enough to not propose a conflict, everybody wins. But, some places it just makes more sense to pop them in the street. Any other additions to that list? Again, where are they going to be in CB9? We need to be aware about public safety issues. They need to be directly near the subways, and then the tangle about whether they should be on sidewalks or on roadbeds. Mr. Meehan vaguely remembers them saying they're going to phase installation going west to east across both CB8 and CB9. That sounds right to me. So how do we want to take this? Again, keeping in mind we're not going to vote on anything tonight. We've seen the list here of where stations are proposed. As I toggle through the slideshow, I didn't actually count them up. I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27 or so maybe in the whole district. I use City Bike almost every day. And I find it a fantastic way to get those short distances that are just a little far to walk and not far enough to drive. If I'm running into Brooklyn Heights or if I'm in Manhattan and I need to go from my downtown office to somewhere in Chelsea, I'll city bike it. It takes me exactly the same long length of time that the subway would. And with these new city bike pedestrian, the battery powered ones, boy, I don't even break a sweat. And I am not in shape, let me tell you. So anyway, I think they are a good, valuable asset to the community, but location is key. Density is key. They have to be spread out for them to be useful. But I've said enough. Does anyone else want to add anything to the list?
I do. It's Echo Tyus.
Ms. Tyus.
Thank you. I really think they should be on a wide sidewalk and not within these neighborhoods of 2 and 3 family homes. They should rather be close to subway stops, as Ms. Wedderburn had mentioned at one of our prior meetings. And we don't need one every block, okay? In Crown Heights North, we don't need a city bike station on every block. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Witherwax?
Yes, Ms. Stern.
Hi, I just wanted to let everyone know that I saw that they'll be presenting to Community Board 9 on June 1st. If anybody's interested in finding out where the locations are going to be in CB9, I know that was a big part of the puzzle before people wanted to weigh in on locations.
Great, thank you. I didn't know that. That's good to know. I'm sure we can find the link to that, and we'll spread it around the community. I saw, hold on, I've got to stop sharing to read the chat. I saw something go by. Is there a way for
I'm
the
sorry,
public
Mr. Weatherwax, before we move on, has that presentation been shared with the committee?
Yes, this too went out in the same email as the
Thank you.
Buffalo Avenue one. But this one is a link. That one was a PDF, or one of them is a link, one of them's a PDF, but they're both in the same email. Is there a way for the public to directly input comments and suggestions to DOT about locations at this point? Yes. And again, let me go back to that presentation. Hold on. Was in here. No, they've taken out the slide that had their contact information, because this is the public-facing version of the presentation. If you want to email your comments directly to the board office, I'm sure they can send them on to the City Bike people. But there was a portal, which is now closed, for suggesting locations as opposed to responding to selected locations. We can try to find that more efficient way to do that.
Before we go, Mr. Witherwax, I just want to let you know I would love to start my video, but I've tried rebooting and everything. It will not take either camera that I have available on this device. So, and my suspicion is that since there's so many other people who are not using their video, they're having a similar problem.
I only wish my video didn't work and you wouldn't all have to look at me. So that's, I'm sorry for that. I
Okay.
the short straw. Let's see.
May I
Yes.
say something? This is Barbara
Absolutely.
Medwell. Some of the blocks have the outer huts for the restaurants. Are they going to put bike racks on those blocks? Because already the parking situation is horrendous. What's going to happen to the people who have cars?
So my understanding, and again, we've got the map. We can do a site visit and double check each of these. My understanding is that the selection process took place while most of those restaurant sheds were in place already. So they were considered as part of the street furniture when they made decisions about where to put bike racks and where not to put bike racks.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, Mr. Willowax. This is Pete Granum, Sterling Place.
Ms. Graham, how are you?
All right. I was on last month at the end, so I missed a lot while I was driving. They're still putting the corrals here at Sterling Place in New York Avenue. Is that still proposed?
Sorry, the what at Sterling in New York?
The bike racks.
The city
Correct.
bike racks?
Because that was one. Because we have this big construction that's going on. We've lost like 22 spots already on our block.
Oh, really? I hadn't heard. Sorry.
I figured not.
Yeah, that construction
be able to
is an
bring that up.
outsized influence on everything right now. Hold on, let me try to go to the right map. Let's find Sterling in New York. There is a proposed sidewalk on Sterling Place. No, sorry, roadbed on the southwest corner of Sterling and New York. Proposed rack on the roadbed.
Right. We don't need that. It's
No, we
really
sure don't.
congested around here. It's really, that's what proposal. If we could bring it up for next month, or whoever we have to speak to about that.
Well, I mean, your
We
point
have
about
Sterling
the
and
ongoing
Denver.
construction is an excellent one. So that's certainly something that I'd be happy to include in our feedback to DOT, that this particular station should be looked at a little more carefully because of, first of all, it's a block away from one on Sterling and Nostrand. And maybe the time is not right, or the location needs to be changed for this one.
And even Sterling Notion is crazy. Is Sterling Notion where? By the restaurant side and the large sidewalk side?
Same idea, on the south side in the roadbed on the southwest corner of Nostrand and Sterling.
Okay, we already have one on Sterling and Bedford.
Bedford, Brooklyn
Okay, so
Museum.
at this point, it's one every block on Sterling
Yeah.
Place, from Bedford Avenue to New York Avenue. Makes no sense.
No.
Doesn't.
Yeah. What about all the garbage? All the litter that these cyclists just keep dropping when they ride it and pick up all their stuff.
Amen.
Let's not talk about that, because then I'll talk about the drivers who throw things out their windows as they drive down the streets. You know, let's not be broad brushy here. We can definitely bring that over surplus on Sterling to DOT's attention and see what they have to say about that. Thank you, Ms. Grantham. Any other comments?
Block between New York and Brooklyn on St. Mark's, that's a very wide street that can hold bike racks on one side and the other side for parking, because they angle park anyway.
Yeah, there's one on Brooklyn Avenue near the Children's Museum, and there's one on New York near St. Mark's Avenue, but there's nothing on St. Mark's in the proposed plan that we've seen. So again, they will say, officially they'll say, no, we can't move it. We can't move one once we put it in place. Don't believe them. There have been racks that have been moved around corners, moved from road to sidewalk, sidewalk to road. It's a fine tuning process. There are racks that are expanded because they get a lot of use, and that are made because they don't get a lot of traffic. It's definitely a process that gets fine tuned over time. So again, we've had it in Prospect Heights for a number of years now, and they are used frequently and well. So it's a nice additional way to get around town that can go in most people's pockets. All right, why don't we move on? Because again, the same idea, we don't have a quorum, we can't vote on this, so we'll just kind of take our feedback without comment and pass it on to DOT. So thank you for those additional points.
Can I just add
raised
one
in
comment,
tonight.
please?
Who's that? Yes.
This is William Meehan.
Yes,
I
Mr.
just
Meehan.
want to ask that however DOT decides to shuffle around the docks, that they don't reduce the number that they're going to place, because they're kind of already at the minimal, like they're already at like the maximal spacing that they're useful. Like already, you know, kind of around me, you can sometimes have to walk like a solid 5 minutes in order to reach a dock, and
It
so
kind of defeats the purpose.
yeah.
I agree with you. We probably live close to each other. I've got to go sometimes when the Underhill Playground one has nothing. I've got to go all the way to Vanderbilt. It works out. And you made a point last meeting too, or perhaps in the commentary in between meetings about the regular city bikes versus the pedal assist city bikes. And you know, I have become an utter convert to the pedal assist bikes, and they level the transportation playing field for everyone. And I think that one of the comments I would like to add in is that we should have whatever caps or arbitrary caps are placed on these systems should be lifted. So definitely we can make those comments.
So Rob, what are we doing at this point on this? I mean, I understand your guys' discussion about it being so close, but I don't see a problem with walking 1 or 2 blocks to find a city bike. I mean, that's the purpose of city bike, is convenience and to get some exercise.
Yeah.
I think that we need to get some, maybe the people who live in these areas need to analyze it and see what's the best way to go. I do agree with city bikes. I'm going to be utilizing it. However, there need to be a balance of city bikes and the community. And if you guys have a problem with walking 1 block for a bike, this is about getting in shape also.
No, it's not so much the problem with walking 1 block for a bike. It's the problem with walking past multiple empty docking stations to get to a bike, right? Because of the rebalancing. There should always be bikes at every station. And sometimes because of where we live, where we are, we're on the periphery of a system. people get on them and they go to the center of the system. And then there's not enough people who come back to the periphery. It's all very timely and the system rebalances, but that's one of the frustrating things. That's the point, is that to go to a dock and find no bikes there, and then go to the next dock and find no bikes there. There should always be
Excuse me, sir.
a bike at every dock, just like there should always be at least a parking spot on every block. Sometimes supply and demand doesn't quite work that way. But that's something that the system needs to balance better. All right, it is 7:30. We've spent a good half hour on these two items. I think we have a lot of good constructive feedback on all sides of the issue that we can pass on to DOT. And I'm just going to say, unless the committee feels otherwise, do we want to just move on to subcommittee reports, and we'll save the business end on the goals for our June meeting?
Mr. Witherwax, can I just ask one question regarding the city bike?
Oh, sure, Ms. Joyner.
I know it's an action item at some point when we have a quorum. What exactly are we voting on?
So the idea was we were going to take in feedback. We were going to discuss it like we just did. And then we were going to have either vote to authorize a letter to be written to City Bike and to DOT embodying the committee's feedback, but that's being hyper formal. And if we're happy being less formal, we can just pass on our comments and criticism. They're welcome to come and watch these videos and to get the true tenor of what was said tonight. I think there's a lot of good stuff in here. So if we don't want to be super formal, we can be more casual and still get the feedback in ahead of any implementation. So that's the idea. We don't have to vote on it. I like being formal. I'm a formal guy, but we don't have to.
No, and I understand that. My concern is that due to this discussion and discussion at the previous meeting, there's obviously differences of opinions regarding where these bike racks should be placed, and it seems like it's more popular at one part of the district than it is the other. So I just want to make sure that people who don't, I mean, everyone has access to these meetings. Obviously, they're public. But those who, for some reason or another, don't attend these meetings or are not able to voice their opinions here, that all voices be heard.
It's always a concern with everything we do. It's the fatal flaw to any system of democratic interaction. And ultimately, you can always say, somebody can always raise their hand and say, but I didn't know. And we have to do the best job we can about getting the word out ahead of time. And I think, the drumbeat about City Bike is coming, or changes to Eastern Parkway and Buffalo are coming, changes are coming. It helps everybody the more we all talk about it. By the same token, we don't need to stop and wait and make sure that every single person has.
Oh, I'm not saying every single person.
I know you're not. But there's a balance to be struck between getting.
And that's the operative word. That's the operative word. Balance. Balance is the operative word.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right.
Can I say one thing? Why don't they have the people who patronize in the bike ride, that they don't take the bikes back to where they got it, so therefore stations won't be empty?
So let me give you a for instance. I'm an attorney. I work in an office in downtown Manhattan. I look at my watch and say, oh my God, I'm due in court in 10 minutes. Court's 20 minutes away. How am I going to get there? I could run down into the 4 train and hope that a train comes, or I can jump on a city bike and take myself to court. Phew, did it. Got there in time. But then when I'm done with court, do I necessarily get on a city bike and go back to where I came from? Not necessarily, because in the meantime, I'll check my app. Oh, the dock that I came from might have gotten taken. Somebody's filled it up. Plus, I want to go grab lunch, so I'm going to walk. I'm not in a hurry now. It just adds a little extra possibility into your day. But it isn't always about commuting. It isn't always about going from point A to point B and then back to point A.
what I was really saying is within the immediate area where the person got the bike, like let's say they got the bike on Eastern Parkway and Brooklyn, and there's one on maybe St. Mark's and New York. Why can't they ride the bike over there and drop the bike instead of putting it where there's, already bikes and no bikes in the other area?
So actually, City Bike has a really cool program to incentivize exactly that, and it's called the Bike Angel program, and my son makes fun of me for how obsessively I count my Bike Angel points. I will deliberately ride out of my way to go to an empty dock and park there, even if I have to walk an extra block to go to my ultimate destination, because they'll give me free points, and if I get enough free points, I get added time to my membership. I get sort of discounts on other things. They try to make the users of the system act in exactly that way that you're talking about, which is really cool.
Okay.
Not everybody does it, but it's me. What can I say? Thank you for that.
I understand. You're welcome.
So this has been a really productive meeting. I'm going to ask, do any of our subcommittees have any reports they want to make?
I'd like to add something.
Yes.
Hi, this is Miss Kinsey.
Hi, Miss Kinsey.
To Fiore's point, it was really about voting, and it seems as though, everything is already in place. So you're saying that we're just going to vote on if we could come to an agreement on the tweaking. We no longer have a say-so on if we want it on a particular street or not. And I do agree with more people really having information on it, and particularly streets with homes. They may not necessarily want the racks on their block, with parking spaces being limited as it is and people waiting hours for a parking spot. So it just shows up there. How can they get it removed? It seems as though, these things are already planned out, and I'm not understanding why we're even discussing it. Just if it's all about a letter, just tweaking something. I'm really not getting it.
If I follow you correctly, you're wondering what this feedback is for? I would say that it's to
are they
fine
really
tune.
listening? Yeah. Right. So, how can we come to a consensus in the committee with the feedback? Someone may not want it on their block. There's people who aren't even privy to the fact that the racks may even be coming to their block, and now we're deciding on that.
Well, I would say one element of the feedback is that it says, for example, it's contradictory. The feedback says some members, quote, "I'm very happy to see these mostly in the roadbeds." Some members, quote, "not happy they are on the roadbed." So yeah, we're giving a bit of contradictory feedback, but that informs the process. DOT sees, okay, you've got a community where the people who've assembled to discuss this are a little torn on that point. So that's helpful. That's constructive. I'm not seeking consensus. I don't think that's achievable, because I think we've got 20 people on this committee and probably 20 different opinions on where any particular rack should go. That's not our point. We're here to advise these programs, and we're here to give this committee's feedback to proposals that are brought to us. DOT came to us and said, look, we're going to make these changes to Buffalo Avenue and Eastern Parkway. We've got 7 or 8 really thoughtful tweaks to that. DOT came to us and said, we're going to roll City Bike out into Crown Heights. We've got 7 or 8 really thoughtful tweaks to that. We're adding value to the process. Do I need consensus to do that? I don't think so. Do we need consensus among the community to do that? Again, I don't think so. That's not our role. I see a hand, Mr. Kraft.
Beg to differ.
Yeah, what's our role if we're not here to communicate about what we want, especially the people who live on the block and own? Yeah, right. So what's the purpose? Our point is, we live on this block, and a lot of us on having this conversation. owners of properties on this block, and in short, we don't want it. So that's what we're here. That's what we're trying to figure out. That is two sides to a coin, and one side is we don't want it. That's the side that needs the voice.
Well, that's
what we're trying to say.
Again, it's embodied in the feedback. I see Mr. Crashes, then Ms. Tyus.
Yeah, I was just going to build it, just maybe expand on the comments here, maybe try to do my best to pull this together in some ways, because I did for the you know, when we were trying to shape some input about where the next year should go, I think I passed on an idea about trying to clarify when the committee gets information from Department of Transportation and even from neighborhood associations and from elected officials, so that we actually can weigh in at the right points in the process to be impactful. And so I think, you know, that's part of why, I mean, I personally have been, you know, working on these with the Rules of the Road Committee. We've been working on these spreadsheets, which will end up cementing down information about projects underway. And if we find out when the projects are early, and we would be able to give in, you know, we could actually work with a district office, the community board district office, to district manager's office, to send out information to the whole community in the best way we can at the junctures, to bring people to the meetings at those points where the Department of Transportation would actually shape their plans more meaningfully. Like instead of tweaking at the end of a process, you're actually intersecting at multiple points in the process. But we can only do that if we have collected all the information, we know where the projects, we have a kind of list of running projects and what their status is. And then the committee can use its public meetings, which happen monthly, to provide an opportunity for comments. And then, so that's one part of what I wanted to ask, is if we could maybe consider that a project, like that the community board EST committee use its committee meetings as a means of drawing the public in and finding really good moments or points of intersection for the government's projects in the district to be to absorb public comments in a meaningful way. And then the other part of that, though, is that for the way the committee functions, maybe Rob, you can clarify how and when we vote. Like, it seems like in some cases we could be, I mean, I know we don't have a quorum tonight, but if we actually voted on things, even when there isn't a consensus, it might actually help our dialogue, because we have a sense who we each are, how we're going to vote. And by voting, sometimes there might be a majority that will be a small majority that will win, but that might help this committee function. It's just a suggestion. So how do we go about voting? Because I haven't really witnessed us vote yet too many times.
So my sense of that is, you know, again, if there isn't, we're not one of the committees that has applicants who come before us. Well, we do with co-naming, right? They come before us and they ask for our blessing. We're not like the SLA committee or the land use committee, where we've got applicants seeking the community board's blessing for their proposed project. When city agencies come before us, they're not looking for our blessing. They're looking for our advice. They're looking for our input. So yeah, you're right. Voting is something that is not sort of built into the DNA of a lot of the committees of CBA. It's really only built into the DNA of SLAC and land use. We would vote if there were something controversial, like, say, we needed to write a letter on a subject. Let me pull up a non-controversial one. Helicopter traffic. If half the committee said we wanted to write a letter to the powers that be saying we wanted no more helicopter traffic, and the other half of the committee said, hell no, we love the helicopters, we'd probably put it to a vote. But when the question is, it isn't a binary question right now that we're talking about. We're not talking about should City Bike come or should City Bike not come. We're not talking about should Eastern Parkway in Buffalo be renovated or should it not be renovated. We're talking about, well, what advice, what feedback can we give? You know, That's a potato salad. It can hold a lot of different ingredients.
But why aren't we discussing should it come or should it not come? It's as if we're at the table. We're at the table, but we don't have a voice. We should be able to say yes or no.
I agree
Like
with
we
Ms.
used to.
Kenzie, and I thought I was the next one to be able to speak after Mr. Crassus. So I just want to start to use language describing what our job is that we all agree on. I think that every single committee in this community board that works on this community board, all of their discussions head towards consensus building. And the indicia for that are the motions that are made and voted on. And that's the advice we give to any city agency that brings a project plan before us, whether it's stated plainly that they're looking for the community board support or not. We should be advising them of what we discussed and the consensus, meaning the motions that were made it to the floor and were voted on and voted up. Those are the consensuses that we should be putting in our letters in every single committee. If they've got an issue or a project coming from a city agency, we should be writing letters to that agency to let them know what the thoughts were at our meeting. So that's my point of view on the thing. I hate to differ with you. You're doing a great job here, but I just want to put out the common language as I understand it as an attorney. That's what the motions are for, and that's what the successful motions represent. Our advice to the city agencies, whether they ask for it or not.
And it's going to sound like I'm having it both ways, but go back to what I said in response to Ms. Joyner's question a few minutes ago. I prefer the formal way. I would love to ratify everything with a motion. I would love to have a vote to say this letter looks good. That has a little more heft, a little more force behind it. It's on the record. Tonight we're hampered. We don't have a quorum. But I also don't think it's the type of thing that if it were something adjudicative like an application for a liquor license, we can't say anything. But it's not. We want to give a flavor of the district's feelings, the variety of feelings on the topic. It doesn't necessarily need 7 were in favor, 8 were opposed, right? It's not that high stakes. So that's why I think it's doable.
But it is high stakes for the people that live on the block.
Well, then,
yes, it is.
Your block,
it is.
Sterling and Nostrand.
Yeah.
Sterling in New York, pardon me. We've pulled it out, and we're going to make a note that block should be considered to be held in abeyance at least during the construction. I agree with you. I think that's asking for trouble to put a city bike location right where this construction is going on, because it is such an imposition on the neighborhood. No problem. It's in the stew. It's in the potato salad.
Okay, can you add me to the potato salad between New York and Nostrand? As is, there is a lot of noise. I live one building off the corner. And if a bike rack is placed somewhere, especially at the corner, during the winter, I can't sleep because of the amount of noise. And now that you're giving the hangouters a resting place to rest their butts to make even more noise. So I don't think, between New York and Rogers shouldn't have any.
All right. Noted.
Thank you.
I see Miss Wedderburn's hand.
Hi, I just wanted to weigh in about the formal letter writing, for an adjudicative committee rather than an advisory committee. Oftentimes the effectiveness is not only about timing, it's about being able, through your experience on a committee, to identify the correct persons, or parties with which you have to advocate for. So I would say that, especially when you have advisory committees, to have a consensus of what you want to do, and then identify how the committee itself, it might not just be one letter from the committee or from the community board, but you may indeed be more influential by having the multitudes compose a letter and send it individually so that they know it's not one voice. Because what's happening in our community is that when you have an opposing voice to the prevalent view, you're characterized as a crank rather than someone in the community that has a stake in the outcome and the issue. My 10 cents.
Thank you. Thank you.
Agreed.
I will point to the memo that I sent to the committee the other day, which goes back to kind of what your point is too, right? A lot of the stuff, a lot of our agenda is dumped on us and we have to react to it. And we have to react to it as best we can, right? Where I want this committee to do the most good is where we can be proactive, where we break into our subcommittees, where we meet with like minds and we talk about subjects of interest to us, and we come up with organically from within the committee proposals that we want to bring to the broader committee that we can then ratify and vote on, right? That's what the subcommittee should be percolating on. And some of our subcommittees have done wonderful work. And to Peter's question, yes, we voted on some things that have come out of the subcommittees in the past. We voted on several letters to be sent, including the helicopter letter. That's what I want this committee to do. I want us to be out there spotting the issues that aren't dumped on us by DOT or DEP or DOS and say, here's something, a place where we can make a difference, and here's how we can make that difference. That's what I really want this committee to focus on in the next next month, the next year, the next couple of years. That's where we really know our neighbors. We can spread the word and find out what's really going on and bring it to somebody's attention and effect change. Yes, some of these things are foregone conclusions by the time they show up at our doorstep. Not everything is. And if there is something that is being missed, it is our job to shine that spotlight on it, to come up with a plan, a proposal, beat the drum, and bring it up the chain, right? So that is where I think our efforts are better spent. Finding those areas, and again, we're not going to talk about it tonight, but the list that has been sent out to the committee with several the proposed goals in the environment, the sanitation, the streets, and the transit world. That's our roadmap. That was our roadmap for the subcommittees this past year, and it'll be our roadmap for the subcommittees next year. And we will ratify all of that with a vote in June, quorum provided. So I will ask once again at 7:52. We've been at this for just a shade under 2 hours. Do any of the subcommittees have a report that they wish to make?
Mr. Whiterax, my last statement on this with
Fire away, Mr. Thurton.
DOT, you know, that I know that they got community response to this, but it seems like their effort is not done in a proper manner because everyone on this call is fully aware of what goes on in the community. DOT should have came into the community that they're serving and identify and come up with the plan with each one of the community boards in what they're looking to do, and get the feedback from the community that's involved, so it could be built in a proper manner. If it's, I agree for it to come, but they need to respect the community and work with the community instead of a lot of outsiders saying what they want. But and also in reference to subcommittee, I think right now is the time for us for us to address the plan, because as you said, they can change whatever they wish. So this has not been implemented now. Maybe we should have a subcommittee to analyze this and come up with and get a feedback from the community and come back with locations where we think it would be feasible and more beneficial, and not everyone, but most of the people would be happier. And then, you know, we won't have so much of a kickback on it. But the community needs to have their input on this, and I don't think DOT did their proper effort to come to the Crown Heights North community and say that this is what we're going to do. You don't need to be coming out for a lot of outsiders dictating what goes on in the community. They needed to reach out to our community and work with the community residents and identify this.
An excellent point to be added into the feedback. DOT outreach gathered insufficient feedback from local residents as opposed to perhaps visitors. I prefer to say that to outsiders necessarily, people who want to come to Crown Heights for other reasons than the fact that they live here. Great. Any other subcommittee reports? And to your point, Mark, if you or members of this committee want to, again, I think time is short. I'd rather get this to DOT quicker than later. If you want to have an offline ad hoc meeting about this and bring it back to us in June, go right ahead. As Mr. Crashes is pointing out, I think the same thing is in play here. Prospect Heights and the early implementation of City Bike had an opportunity to feedback into a map where we thought locations would be. We did that. Then we had a chance to tweak the suggestions. I don't remember the tweaks being accepted. Well, that's where we are now. We're in that tweaking phase, and that's some of the criticism we're going to give them. Certainly, we've named 2 or 3 spots where we do not think the racks, as currently positioned, make sense. So we're gonna pass that on. But again, if you want to have an ad hoc meeting to discuss it, we'll plan it. Last call for subcommittee reports, and then I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn because we've had a full 2-hour meeting.
Mr. Witherwax, this is Deb Howard.
Ms. Howard, yes, thank you. 2 more things, 2 more agenda items in new business. Ms. Harris-Blenman reached out to me a while ago. She would like to bring up the topic of Access-a-Ride. Ms. Harris-Blenman, do you want to speak a little bit on that? And then Ms. Howard, you're next.
Yes. Hello, everyone. This is Jeannie Harris Blenman. I live on Park Place in Nostrand, okay, in New York. Okay, I am an Access-a-Ride rider, and I've noticed that before the COVID began, there was kind of some problems with Access-a-Ride. But now that they're back in full force, it's gotten like ridiculous and worse. They've made changes that make no sense to me. As far as before, you was able to call them and say, okay, I'm at the doctor. The doctor has completed. I've completed my visit with the doctor. Okay, would it be possible for me to get a ride and come back to my home early? Before, they used to work with you when it came to that. The only thing that they didn't kind of like gave you a hard time really was when you had to take the paratransit. But as far as the broker, which is the car service, the regular car service, they would automatically just, okay, perfectly fine, send a car. Now they came up with a rule about 2 weeks ago that's no longer in effect. Whatever time that you tell them that you're leaving, that's it. Unless you're going to pay for a cab to take you home or take the bus. If you pay for a cab, you can ask for a taxi authorization, and they would take out the $2.75 and give you back the rest. That's if you have the money for the cab. Okay. My other thing is that they have, once you see morning time, it's really not a problem. You see about 1 p.m., you have a difficulty trying to get an Access-a-Ride vehicle, which is the blue and white one, or the cab to come and get you from your destination. They would literally say, I'm sending, the car's coming. You'll be standing there, you'll be waiting for a while. They'll say, oh, you know what? Okay, we'll send an emergency vehicle. Emergency vehicle is not coming. You have to find a way to get yourself home. Okay, I've literally been downtown Brooklyn on Montague Street waiting for a vehicle to come back home at 2 p.m. Okay, my sister, she takes Access-a-Ride herself. 2 days in a row, she's coming from Mount Sinai Hospital. No emergency vehicle, and she's not getting home. I literally have to send a cab to go and get her from Mount Sinai Hospital to bring her back to Brooklyn. I don't know what they're doing. I don't have the foggiest idea what they're doing. When you call them, you call a complaint goes in one ear, comes out the other. Oh, we're sorry. That's all you get. I'm sorry. That's it. Complaint goes nowhere. Matter of fact, the complaint line is full where you can't leave a message.
So you're tracing this back to a new rule. The afternoon thing is its own thing, but the pickup time rule change, right? That's something you think is misguided.
Okay, the pickup time. Let's say you have an appointment. You asked them to pick you up at 2 p.m. and your doctor has completed your visit, let's say by 12. You can't call them and say, well, I need to be picked up now. You can't do that because they're not picking you up. They're going to pick you up at the time that you stated, regardless of the fact. It doesn't matter. And really, basically, you better hope they pick you up at that time. You got to hope and pray they pick you up at that time. Because they can tell you, oh, we're coming, and you'll still be there waiting for them to come.
Is there anybody on this committee who's also on the senior committee?
Yes, I am, Ms. Langley. And Ms.
Great, Ms. Langley.
Kinsey.
Is this something you guys have discussed at all?
No, so far it did not come up in any of the senior meetings as yet. I don't know.
I'm going to
if
reach
Regina,
out to Ms.
maybe Regina
Branch
might have-
Mohammed. Sorry, go ahead, Ms. Langley.
Maybe Regina might know because sometimes she is there when I'm not there at the meeting. So far, we have not discussed it in the senior meetings yet.
I'll reach out to Ms. Branch Mohammed too, the chair, and see if that's something that we want to maybe work on together. Because I think there's a great overlap there with what the insight we can bring, the insight they can bring, and maybe we can come together again. The subcommittee model, people putting their minds together and coming up with a way to affect the change, right? So I'll talk to her and see if there's any ideas that we could work on to get some influence on the process. I mean, surely. No, my pleasure. That was Miss Howard, and then I see Miss Gray and Miss Wedderburn's hand. So Miss Howard, Miss Gray, Miss Wedderburn.
Thank you. This is Deborah Howard. I had spoken last month about the alternate side parking regulations going back to pre-COVID. I was told on that call that I should contact our council person. So I did. I contacted Councilmember Hudson. Her office told me to contact Councilmember Nurse, who is the chairperson of the Sanitation Committee, and request that she have an oversight hearing. I've never heard back from her. I contacted Councilmember Hudson again and heard from her director of policy, who said that they've been in contact with Councilmember Nurse, that a lot of people have been complaining about the alternate side parking going back to 4 days a week instead of 2, and basically sent me back here to Community Board 8. And so I guess my request is that Community Board 8 could send a communication to Councilmember Nurse to officially request an oversight hearing.
I think that's an excellent suggestion. One of the proposed projects for our streets subcommittee for next term was to do an alternate side parking deep dive, to look at the schedule, to look at the fine schedule. Why is it cheaper to leave your car where it is and get 3 or 4 tickets a month than put it in a garage? That's economically insane. It should always be cheaper to put it in the garage than to leave it on the street and get tickets. So there's other things that we were thinking about working on with that project. But I think this is the typical small ball, low hanging fruit. That's an excellent suggestion to request oversight, especially since our district is one of those that had the rollback to 2 days a week and now is going to be ramped up to 4 days a week. This is something that there's many other districts out there like us, and we should ally with them and maybe move together collaboratively. So again, that's something that I think a small group of us who are interested in the topic can really work on. So yes, I will definitely add it to the new business portion of the meeting, and probably we can, just make an online request of Council Member Nurse to hold the oversight hearing without going through the whole rigmarole. I think that's a no-brainer too. Thank you.
And I'm sorry, just to understand, you said next term, or you bring this up in your June meeting? Because next term, I think, will be too late.
Oh, I agree. No, I agree. No, next term, we wanted to talk about fines and whether we can get a permanent reduction in the schedule. But in terms of just an oversight hearing, I think that's something that we can request soon.
Great. Okay, thank you.
And I'll leave that to Ms. George and the board office to put the mechanics together. Ms. Gray and Ms. Wedderburn's hand has gone down, but Mr. Thurton's has gone up. So Ms. Gray and then Mr. Thurton.
Hi, good evening. Subcommittees, are you adding more people to the subcommittees?
The idea was to sort of reshuffle the deck. And we're going to talk about that in June more, about sort of rearranging the way our subcommittees are topically oriented. And then, yeah, the membership is always fluid. If you wanted to join one, just let us know.
Thank you.
Mr. Thurton?
Yes, with the alternate street side of the parking, is it more beneficial if we can do it like borough-wide so that, everyone benefits from it? So it's not,
Yeah, like I said, I'd like to know what other districts, I mean, I know 2 and 6 only have 2 days a week. I'm not sure about 3. But 9 is like us. I think 7 is like us. And then as you get further out into Brooklyn, you don't have ASP at all. So I don't know where the fault lines are. I'd like to do some cross-board conversation and exactly that, ally with other boards, so we're making a stronger voice.
Yeah, and it'll be more beneficial for us because then you don't have we have a transportation hub location, and we don't want to have a lot of people just saying, hey, that Community Board 8 has 2-day parking, so I can come and leave my car there. Leave my car at their location and go off to work and don't have to come back and pick their car up until the end of the week. So if we spread it out to other community boards, it'll be better for us.
Exactly. And there's other parking related projects like, the notion of residential parking permits that a lot of members emailed me about to say, hey, I'd like to really talk about that and learn more about that. And then there's just the notion of enforcement, right? Parking enforcement and enforcement of rules of the road. And where are the precincts in all of this? Where are the, why do people with paper license plates and get passed by? Why do we have so many out-of-state license plates parking regularly on our streets? Where are these people from, and why haven't they registered in New York? And what's going to happen if one of them hits me? Right? There's a lot of that. Again, it's really low-hanging fruit. It's really frustrating, and it's obvious stuff that if we can bring some influence to bear on solving those problems, I think we'd be a better community. I see Miss Denise H's hand. And yes, Ms. Howard, I do agree that CB8 will request that Councilmember Nurse hold an oversight hearing. Miss Denise, sorry.
Thank you for the time. I wondered a place to bring this up. I wanted to address the issue of the street closure on Underhill Avenue between, I guess it's St. John's, all the way over to Bergen Street, allegedly for street play. No one is on that street. There are no activities, there are no restaurants. And it's one of those closures that I don't quite understand. And it's every day, all day, from 8 to 4 p.m.
So are you aware of the organization PHNDC?
No.
Okay. PHNDC.org, that's your first point of contact for comments and criticisms of that particular open street. Second is in June, at this very meeting, we will be hearing from the Department of Transportation with a kind of 2.0 presentation for that open street. So they will be coming back here in June to present changes to the model. So please join us again to hear that presentation.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for the time.
No problem. Thank you for your time. Any other comments for this evening?
Denise H. about the Underhill situation. I live right here on Prospect Place near Underhill, and I agree with that. I don't understand it.
Thank you, Ms. Gray. I didn't realize we were close neighbors. Any other comments for this evening? Great. Well, I will ask for an informal motion to adjourn.
I seconded,
I guess.
Thank you, everyone, and have a good night.
Good night.
You too.
See you
Be
in
safe,
June.
everyone.